because we're sitting on the dais. This is, when they built this village hall, this is what we were supposed to be. And on this occasion, we have a brand new village manager, his very first day, our second day on the job. And one of the suggestions he and the village clerk made was that we make use of this. And so we're going to be trying this. The audio is much better, is what we've been told, and so we're looking forward to that. So those of you who are watching, you hopefully won't hear our voices go in and out. And we look forward to still working closely with the residents of Pinehurst. So let me call to order the regular meeting of September 10th, 2024. As is our usual custom, we will have begin with an invocation from Reverend Hugh Foley. Please come forward, and that will be followed by a Pledge of Allegiance, who will be led by Vice Admiral David Buss, a 1978 Annapolis graduate who served on active duty in the U.S. Navy for 37 years as a career naval aviator and commanded a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. He and his wife, Donna, have lived in Pinehurst for the past 4 years. So please, Reverend.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we ask that you bless our mayor and this council, the senior staff, and our new village manager, as they represent us, the people and community of Pinehurst. Grant that they may have a spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, so that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices as they consider the needs and concerns of our village. We thank you for their service and for the time they give our community, and ask that you bless each member of the council, the staff, and their families. In your holy name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend. Admiral Buss, please come forward and lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Admiral. Thank you, Reverend. Okay. Well, let us move on to traditional next item, which are the reports from the manager and the council. So this is the inaugural report from our new village manager. If you don't know him, his name is Doug Willardson. So Doug, go right ahead.
I tried to make it extra long so you knew I was doing something. So this past week we learned from the GFOA that we earned their Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, which is something that we earn almost every single year, but this year in particular we won the Long Range Operating Financial Plan subcomponent of it. So that's first time for us, so that's good news. This week, Friday, we have Live After 5 here at the Arboretum just down the hill. Also, before we meet again, we will also have the Eats, Beats, and Brews, which is September 21st, and that's 5 to 9, also out here at the Arboretum. The fire department is currently doing the hydrant flushing, so the neighborhoods where they're affected have a sign out. It's typically between 8 and 2 p.m. Some residents may see some discoloration with their water. If that's the case, they should just flush it until it runs clear. We're also wrapping up our business and community survey, so if you have not completed those, we ask that you do. And last of all, tomorrow is Patriots Day, 9/11, so the fire department has some activities. They're doing the 3.5 Tunnel to Towers walk in remembrance of the victims, and that will begin at 7:59 a.m., which is when the first flight took off on September 11th. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. A few items. We recently had completed the first annual exchange of letters between Pinehurst and Dornoch, Scotland. We may recall we sent a letter to them, and they replied to us just the other week. And those letters will be on the website for all of you. And our mutual connection to the history of golf bonds our communities. And so it's a good thing that was established about, I think, a year or so ago by the former mayor, and we will do this on an annual basis. Secondly, I'm proud to announce that the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction just released the Moore County Schools performance grades. And the 22 schools of the 22 schools in Moore County, only one received an A grade, and that was the Pinehurst Elementary School. So we are fortunate to have that school located just a few blocks from Village Hall, and we're proud to acknowledge their accomplishment. So thank you, Pinehurst Elementary School. Next, the daily police report that we review from Chief Webb. Every now and then I'll pick out one and sort of report to the community of what was in it. And I caught the September 3rd one was particularly interesting. There were a total of 85 calls for service that our police force did in that one day. They wrote 2 written warnings. They issued 9 citations, and they spoke to 16 other drivers in the way of verbal warnings. So there were 27 traffic stops alone on one day. And they're busy, but sometimes we don't realize that, we don't know that, and that's one of the reasons I like to occasionally pass this on. And during that whole time period, our police chief and his wife had a new baby. So there's a lot going on in the police department right now. So if you see Glenn Webb, if he looks a little tired, it has nothing to do with the state of crime in our community. I'd also like to read a letter that the council received and share it with the rest of the community. It's basically a complimentary letter from 10 residents who live on Mackenzie Road East. And they were thanking us for the attractive walkway which has been installed there recently. So I know some communities in our village are always curious about how are we doing on sidewalks and walkways and all. We're getting to them, we're doing them, and this unsolicited letter was a nice, pleasant surprise in our mailboxes. So I thank you, East Mackenzie Road. Next, I wanted to mention that at our next meeting on September 24th, as we've mentioned in the past, we're going to have a portion of that meeting in our work session where we're going to, as a council, will discuss and review the many suggestions that residents have provided us over the last 3 months about how to make improvements to the traffic flow at the circle. And because many residents have sent in suggestions. As usual, everybody's all invited to attend because it's going to be during a council meeting. And people can comment during the public comments portion of the meeting. And so we look forward to any input and thoughts people may have, and please share them with the council members so we can discuss them. Also, I have one other thing I wanted to mention. Oh, yes. In addition, tomorrow, of course, is, as mentioned earlier, Patriots' Day, and recognition of course, that horrible event of 9/11. But today is also the recognition of something that is actually related to Pinehurst specific. Today, September 10th, is Thank a Golf Course Superintendent Day. Now, I stumbled on this purely by accident. And so, for those of you who know a golf course superintendent, and it's not uncommon here in the village of Pinehurst, I encourage you to thank them. We have, we have about 14, 18 whole golf courses just in our village alone, I think, close to that. And these are folks that maybe don't get recognized as much as we think they should. So the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America have established this is their day. So please share that with your fellow golf course superintendent. And that concludes my comments. The only other thing I'll mention before I ask the Mayor Pro Tem for his report is that one of the things that this dais does now is you can't see which one of us is wearing shorts. Okay. And Yes, I've heard from some other people in the past about those of us that take our shoes off, or someone once commented about my socks. So again, one of the interesting byproducts of this new setup. John Taylor, please.
I think that will become less of an issue as the year unfolds here and the weather gets cooler, but I guess, first of all, I would like to say that I attended the barbecue festival over Labor Day weekend. I thought it was fantastic. If anything, it was crowded, which is a good thing. The lines were long, and I thought the food was excellent. I have a couple of thoughts on things that we might be able to do. We, as the village, are not really responsible for putting this on, but there are a couple of things that we might do as a village to enhance the experience of people who come, and we'll be talking about that in the future. I also attended last week the technical committee meeting of the SMPO. They continue to grind forward in their mission to ultimately produce a comprehensive transportation plan for the municipalities that are involved in it. Are having gotten a lot of organizational things out of the way, and a lot of which has been under Doug's stewardship, in addition to his past responsibilities as assistant village manager. They're continuing to move forward. They meet the first Wednesday of each month, the technical committee, and the full committee the third Wednesday. And I think those meetings, although there's no public input period, they are open to the public for people who want to attend.
Yeah, there is actually a public input portion.
Okay. That's it for me.
Dr. Taylor. Dr. Morgan, please.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Pat, I must compliment you on your news feed. I would have never gotten the golf course superintendent day, so I might have to see how to plus it up for my news feed here. Don't have a whole lot here for my report. I did attend the meeting with the Central Pines Regional Council, which I'm the representative for Pinehurst. And just as a reminder, that's an organization that has representation for most of the townships in a variety of counties of central North Carolina. And they have a very large budget, larger than ours, about a 50-some million, I think about $56 million budget. But the vast majority is a pass-through, as they are able to provide funding grants for different things. And of highlights from the meeting, there's a $1.6 million grant to address youth homelessness in the region. And that's coming from HUD, and it's more involved for Durham, Orange, Wake, and Chatham counties. There's also a idea that, well, not an idea, but a fact that the Central Pines Regional Council is recognized for their grant assistance program, is recognized nationally on there, and is structured to track and analyze funding programs, provide strategic guidance, write competitive applications, and administer grants on behalf of local governments. The program has analyzed more than 400 funding opportunities and has a 62% success rate, and that's excellent when you're talking about applying for grants. And they brought nearly $22 million into the region. I bring this up because we're always looking for different projects. We're looking for funding sources of it. And please don't overlook this. The Central Pines Regional Council has a lot of different things that they can help us out with. The last thing I'll bring on there that was of importance in the meeting was that we got an area plan for aging and human services, and the mission of this is empowering aging action plans is to promote the highest level well-being of older adults in Chatham, Durham, Johnson, Lee, Moore, Orange, and Wake counties by partnering with organizations to assess needs and provide a comprehensive system of opportunities, services, and protective supports. And we do have a little bit of a older population compared to the average in there, so this may be a terrific thing for some of our programs to seek out funding on there. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Councilwoman Ficklin.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things. Beautification Committee met yesterday afternoon. One of the things they're beginning, believe it or not, is to prepare for holiday decor and Christmas festivities coming up in the next few months. Secondly, the committee is pursuing doing enhancements along Dundee Road in front of Pinehurst Elementary. The last thing I want to mention is this Saturday, which is the 14th, is the Alzheimer's Walk, which will occur at Sandhills Community College. 9 o'clock is registration, and 10 o'clock the walk begins. So if you're interested in supporting this organization and the walk, we'd love to see you there. Thank you.
Councilman Farrell.
Thank you, Pat. We held the August quarterly meeting of the Port Liberty Regional Land Use Advisory Commission in Spring Lake last month. And for those who don't know, the Port Liberty Regional Land Use Association Commission is chartered with reviewing all land use proposals, changes, and/or ordinances that may affect the outcome of the Fort Liberty mission and the environment. And there's 8 counties and 13 municipalities represented on that commission. In the second quarter, the commission reviewed 121 cases from those municipalities and responded to 15. In the case of Moore County, there were 5 cases and 1 comment and concern, which was the issue about a proposal to exempt all cell towers from any regulation, which could potentially impact airspace. And that was resolved, I think, satisfactorily. So that's in Moore County. We also had a resolution recognizing Colonel Sanborn, retired, as the past chair of the Regional Land Use Advisory Commission, and I believe you also presented a special award. I wasn't available, but over the last week or so to him in that regards. He's well respected in that commission, being the chair of the commission for many, many years. We also had a presentation from the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission on a new program, which is a wildlife conservation land program. It's a present use value tax assessment and abatement program, similar to agricultural or forestry abatement programs. And it's a very interesting program. It's fairly popular in the western part of the state, not so not so well used in this area. It is a very interesting program. Any landowner with 20 acres or more can apply for the Wildlife Conservation Land Program, but they have to take some active steps to, in fact, promote either hunting or wildlife conservation on their land every so often, and prove that to the Wildlife Conservation Group in order to obtain and retain the tax credit. So it's a very interesting program. For those who are interested, there's a brochure that I can hand out, or if you go to the Wildlife Conservation Land Program on the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, I think you'll find out information on it. There may be 1 or 2 property owners in our ETJ in particular who may have an interest in this program. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. I was not aware of that, although.
Jack, out of curiosity, the resolution on the cell towers, you said was satisfactory. I assume it preserved safety in the airspace.
Correct. It was related particularly to Duke Power's wanting to install cell towers at all their transmission stations. And it was a matter of where would they be and would they affect the airspace, particularly around McCall Air Force Base, or airfield, excuse me.
All right. I think that includes our comments, so we'll move on to item 4, which is the motion to approve the consent agenda. We have a couple of items there. All the items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine or have been discussed at length in previous meetings and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held unless requested by a member of the Village Council. So we have the approval of Village Council meeting minutes of August 13th, our regular meeting, and August 13th work session meetings. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion adopted. Thank you. It's the end of the consent agenda. Now, we are open for public comments. We had a sign-up sheet when people come in. I don't know if anyone signed up. No. But if there is someone who has yet to sign or forgot to sign and would like to come up and address the council on any issue of importance to the village of Pinehurst, please come forward. Just raise, here we go. Just introduce yourself and tell us your address and take it from there. You have 3
Mayor,
minutes.
Council, my name is Mitch Puritz. I am living in Pinehurst number 6. I wanted to ask the council question because I'm not familiar with the code enforcement on unsightly yards. Okay, I have put in a request to have one of my neighbors' yards looked at for weeds, dead bushes, trees, and I understand that it was visited, pictures were taken, and the only thing they actually got them on was a unregistered vehicle. But from what I see, living right across the street from this house, is weeds are about 1 foot high. There's what they call a weed tree growing over his mailbox. And I guess what I really just wanted to try to figure out is, what is the actual, what does unsightly mean? What does it take for someone to cut their weeds, and there's no pine straw, there's grass growing through the pine straw about yay high. We're a beautiful area. We talked about beautification. I heard that. But when it comes to trash cans, I see that on the VOP all the time as people put their trash cans out and they leave them out on a Friday, and it's all over the place. You know, everybody's get your trash cans in, but people keeping their yards up to a certain degree, I just don't understand what it takes for code enforcement to go out there and actually make somebody cut their weeds, take out their dead bushes, cut their dead trees, and you know, we're supposed to be the safest, the cleanest, the best place to retire community, and yet I don't think the code enforcement is doing their job, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Doug, do you want to respond a little?
Maybe we can touch base tomorrow. You can let me know the address, and we can look into that a little bit more, if that works. If you want to leave your name and contact information with the clerk, we can talk tomorrow.
Okay. I mean, it's also just one more thing. It's a rental house. I know the owner. The owner is Kirby Construction, and this is the second renter, I should say, that has let the yard go. And from what I spoke to the first renter, he told me that he asked the owner to purchase pine straw, and it was turned down. So again, I don't like living across the street from it. The house next door to me just sold. I don't know how that person felt about having a yard right across the street looking like crap. Excuse my language. But I would like to see what, but my question is, what does unsightly mean? So when somebody goes and goes onto the VOP website and puts down unsightly yard, unsightly grass, weeds, what does that mean? What does it mean?
Yeah, unsightly means different things to different people.
Exactly, exactly. And I can guarantee you that none of you want to live next to this house.
Well, thanks for bringing it to our attention. There'll be some follow-up. The only thing I would comment on is that we as a village don't sort of regulate tidiness and taste. And some people's tidiness and tastes are a little different from the vast majority of us, but the things you described are something that should be checked on.
I agree. Thank you. Can I come up there?
Thank you.
Just want to leave your contact with Shannon, the clerk over here, then I can reach out tomorrow. Yeah.
You're welcome. Any other comments from anyone in the audience? No? Okay, then the public comments portion of our agenda is closed, and we are now going to go to resolutions. These are two really nice resolutions we're about to take up. So, I am going to step down there to read the resolutions, but I'll just announce we have two resolutions, and we'll vote on them now.
Let's see, you want to pass them first, then read them?
What's that?
Vote on them first, and then you read them?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. So, Resolution 2429 is recognizing the contributions and service of Tom Campbell to the Village of Pinehurst. And
I'm going to move to approve Resolution 2429, recognizing the contributions and service of Tom Campbell to the Village of Pinehurst.
Okay,
Second?
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
No debate.
That was,
That is one thing we don't need to debate.
Having known Tom for a long time, I don't think we have a lot of debate there.
that's why I gaveled it so quickly, Jack.
I don't think there needs to be any debate on the next one. I'm going to move to approve Resolution 2430, honoring Miss Martha Merman, 2024 Miss North America, Senior America.
Okay.
Excuse me, North Carolina, Senior America.
Yes. That's a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion is adopted. Now I'm going to embarrass both of them, and we're going to ask Tom Campbell to come up first to have a motion to read for you. Right over here. Tom is no stranger to those of us who've lived in Pinehurst, whether 1 year or 30 years. So let me read this. A resolution honoring the service of Mr. Thomas Campbell. Whereas Thomas Campbell has been a dedicated and invaluable member of the Village of Pinehurst community, and whereas Mr. Campbell has generously volunteered his time and expertise to serve on several village boards and committees, and whereas Mr. Campbell served with distinction on the Planning and Zoning Board from 2005 to 2012, making significant contributions to the thoughtful and responsible growth of the village, and whereas Mr. Campbell continued his commitment to the village by serving on the Conservation Committee from 2012 to 2017, where his knowledge and passion for environmental stewardship were instrumental in preserving the village's natural beauty, and whereas Mr. Campbell's dedication to enhancing the quality of life for residents and visitors alike was further demonstrated through his service on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee from 2015 to 2024. And whereas Mr. Campbell's contributions to these boards and committees have had a profound and lasting impact on the Village of Pinehurst, now therefore be it resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Pinehurst, North Carolina, in a regular meeting assembled this 10th day of September 2024 as follows. Section 1, that the Village Council hereby expresses on behalf of the citizens of Pinehurst its sincere gratitude and appreciation to Mr. Thomas Campbell for his exemplary service and dedication to the community. In Section 2, that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the permanent minutes of the Village of Pinehurst, and a copy, therefore, duly executed by the mayor, be presented to Mr. Campbell as a token of our esteem. Congratulations, Tom Campbell.
You know, not ever without some words, and I won't make it. In fact, I told Doug that I wouldn't take any more than 30 minutes. He said, I think we better cut that short. At any rate, I would like to say that I got started actually in 30 years of retirement here, and I got a call from Mayor Steve Smith back in one of the prior councils. And he said, Tom, we're forming a trail committee, a greenway. And he said, I want you to serve as chairman. So that really started it, and that was in 2002. And that went on until the sidewalk and pedestrian plan came into effect in 15. So it's been really 22 years in that one particular facet of service. I want to really congratulate all of the councils from there have subsidized with finances the building of these trails throughout the village and the sidewalks, and without that we wouldn't be a committee. So I want to thank this council as well as all the preceding councils. And then I would like to say this is one of the most well-oiled teams with all the different staff that I've ever been associated with. They're there to help any one of the committees that are formed around the village, and it's just been a terrific thing to get to meet all these people, and I can call them friends. And The other thing is particular is the Parks and Recreation Department has been secondarily and primarily as well a force behind helping to organize those, and the heads of all of those Parks and Rec managers have been instrumental in actually getting the job done to build the trails. They've done the bulk of the work. All we did was try and find out where we wanted to go, and then we would come in to discuss it with Parks and Rec, and then we would form it from there. So I want to thank all those people, particularly a shout out to the gentleman up here in the front row who came all the way from north of Raleigh just to say hello and congratulations. So, Mark Wagner. So thank you to all of you. Doug, you've been instrumental as well here recently in your job, and a special thanks to you, and again, thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you. Now on to Resolution 24-30. This is a resolution honoring Ms. Martha Merman, the winner of the 2024 Miss North Carolina Senior American Pageant. Let me read this now. Whereas...
You want to call her up?
Oh, yeah, please join us. It's okay. You'd be right here, of course. If you don't know who's the winner, she's the one with the sash on, okay? Whereas on September 10th, 2024, we recognize and celebrate the Miss America pageant winner, Miss Martha Merman. And whereas it is with great pride and admiration that the Pinehurst Village Council acknowledges the outstanding achievements of our esteemed resident, and whereas Ms. Merman has brought honor and distinction to our community by being crowned Miss North Carolina Senior America for the year 2024, and whereas she has demonstrated unwavering commitment to excellence and service through her dedication, grace, and exemplary representation of North Carolina's values and spirit, and whereas she will be traveling to Atlantic City, New Jersey in late September 2024 to compete for the esteemed title of Miss Senior America at the national level. And whereas her participation in this prestigious competition not only showcases her remarkable talents and achievements, but also reflects the vibrant and supportive community of Pinehurst. And whereas the Village Council extends our heartfelt support and encouragement to Martha Merman as she embarks on this national endeavor, now therefore be it resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Pinehurst, North Carolina, in a regular meeting assembled this 10th day of September 24th, 2024 as follows. Quote, the Village Council does hereby honor and congratulate Martha Merman for her exceptional achievement as Ms. North Carolina Senior America. We commend her for her dedication, poise, and positive example she sets for all residents. We extend our best wishes for her continued success and look forward to celebrating her achievements as she represents the Village of Pinehurst and the state of North Carolina on the national stage. This resolution has been adopted on this day. Congratulations, Martha.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, this has been quite an exciting few months. I want to thank Bev Weatherby and Laura Morgan, who were instrumental in running the Ms. Senior North Carolina pageant. And I'm excited. In 2 weeks, I'll be going to Atlantic City and competing for Ms. Senior America. Laura brought the title to Pinehurst a couple years ago, so I'm hoping to represent our state and our little village here as well as possible, and hopefully bring the title home again. But I'm a golfer here, so you'll usually see me out on the golf courses. Need a golf tip? Just hit me up. I'm happy to help. Sand is my friend, so I teach you sand. But once again, I just thank you for this resolution and this honor, and I'm looking forward to representing our village. And I love living here, and I appreciate all the years of dedication that people like the council here have given and make this such a wonderful place to live. Thank you again.
Thank you. Just one footnote. Martha's very modest. She says she's a golfer. She has had 7 holes in one, okay? For those of us who've played golf for 60-plus years and have never had one, we're jealous. Thank you. Okay, now, on to what we call regular business. Dana is coming forward. The fiscal year 2024 unaudited financial statements, and we'll hear from Dana, our CFO.
Good evening, Council. All right, let's see here. So while I get to...
Dana, while you try to find your place, I'll just jump in that these are our unaudited financial statements. So we will get our audited financial statements probably November-ish. But Dana didn't want to wait so long that you forgot what FY24 looked like. So she is presenting them to us tonight.
Thank you, Doug. That's what I was going to start with here. Yes, as Doug said, by the time November or sometimes even December comes around, when the auditors come to present the audited financial statement report to you, quite a bit of time has passed, and so I wanted to make sure that you receive this information more timely for discussions that will be happening over the next several months, and at least to give you kind of a preview of what our results look like for the fiscal year now that we have that information available. As of today, the audit is substantially complete. They're working through their reviews at this point, and as of now, there are no adjustments that will be made to the numbers I'm presenting to you tonight. It always is still possible as they work through reviews, but nothing that we've been made aware of at this point with the work they've done so far. So looking at our budget to actual summary and comparison to the prior year, there's a lot of numbers here, but this column here, the second one, is the FY24 results. And then the rest are comparisons to budget and the FY23 numbers. You can see we brought in over $27.5 million of revenue, spent just under $25 million. And at the end of the day, we're adding over $3 million to our general fund, and this is general fund only, to our general fund balance. That is a big number. It's we had a very good year, and but I do want to just remind you that we are reappropriating almost $2 million of that to be spent in the following fiscal year. So some of this surplus kind of comes from not spending primarily in the capital. $1.5 million unspent in capital compared to the budget, kind of really driving that larger number in terms of our increase in fund balance. So those dollars will be spent in FY25.
Dana, just one question. Are any of these numbers reflective of the U.S. Open, or that's going to be coming over in the next fiscal year?
Some of them are. Included in the revenues, we do have the ABC revenues that we received. We did receive June actuals in time for them to be included in this number, and that was a pretty large increase from the typical June amount that we receive. But the sales tax, the June sales tax number, we do not have the actuals. We'll get that September 15th or thereabouts. So we do not have that number yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. It does include the $350,000 licensing fee for the U.S. Open.
And then the carryover fee is the $1,691,000
Carryover.
at the appropriated fund balance.
This appropriated fund balance number is what was in the budget. So that's what was needed to balance the FY24 budget as it was at the end of the year after amendments throughout the year.
But as a result of not needing some of that capital for capital projects which will not be completed, we did not take that $1,691,000. That's the over-under budget. Thank you.
Correct.
Dan, one question. Is the budget number the original budget or the budget as adjusted as we go through the year?
Adjusted as we went through the year. So that was the final budget for the fiscal year.
Okay.
It couldn't have been adjusted that much. It was only about 27, wasn't it, or am I off?
No, you're correct. There were not substantial adjustments last year. We had the mid-year amendment, which I don't think changed the budget much, if I recall. Maybe about only $90,000 or so.
Okay.
That may not be the right number, but it wasn't a substantial change to the budget overall. And I think the larger item that did impact the budget was having to make some of the amendments for the subscription, the software subscriptions throughout the year. I think it was about $521,000, give or take. This $521,000 of other financing sources relates to those software subscriptions, which were not in the original budget at the beginning of the year.
But for example, one of the things that got carried over was the projection that we'd done for the four-way stop and stormwater, which we've not been able to complete, but we hope we will in the coming year.
Correct. So this graph displays again, visually, our surplus from comparison from budget 23 and actuals, and then the 24 budget and actuals. The wide bar in red and blue are the expenditures. The narrow bar in green and yellow are the revenues and other financing sources. So our FY24 actual, you can see our operating revenues, so property taxes, permits and fees, the sales and services, recreation fees, those types of things, investment income. Our operating revenues exceeded our expenditures. Last year in 23, you can see it was, this is the ARPA funding. You know, we added over $5 million to fund balance and was really driven by the ARPA funds that we received last year.
Adjusting for all of those things, for things which are not pluses and minuses, what would you say the fund balance will go up then? A little over $1 million?
Yes, yep, it's about $1 million. Yeah, there's a slide later on that will show that once we adjust for the reappropriations, you know, what do we think the actual fund balance will be going forward? Yep. All right, now we'll look at the revenues a little more closely. So this is a comparison year over year. You can see in terms of actuals, our revenues increased pretty substantially from FY23 to FY24, up to $27.5 million. And that was really driven by the property tax rate that was set. We had budgeted for about a $1.3 million increase in property tax revenues, which was achieved. In addition to that, we had higher than expected investment income and sales tax revenues. Those amounts were pretty consistent with what we realized in terms of growth in those two in FY23. You can see the budget to actual variance is very similar year over year. So aside from that bump in the property tax revenue, the other kind of incremental changes in growth year over year were consistent with the prior year. Our property tax collection rate remains very, very high. Thank you, taxpayers. Just about 100%, you know, 99.96% collection rate. The statewide average is about 99.89, somewhere around there. So very good, as we always have been there. Our sales tax revenues, about $523,000 more collected this year than last year. Our local option sales tax was over $7.5 million, 6.9% growth when we had budgeted for about 4.8% for the local option sales tax. And we are consistently within Moore County and what the village actually receives in terms of sales tax allocations, still well above the statewide average of 2.8% for FY24. But that average is based on a very wide range. You still have some areas where they're in double-digit growth and others are losing. You know, they're in decline year over year. So it's a very wide range, but fortunately we're in a good position with the sales tax growth. And our investment income, we earned over $1.2 million in investment income in FY24. almost 50% more than last year. Interest rates held above 5% for the whole fiscal year, and we had a higher cash balance, mostly from the surplus last year and the additional revenues in FY24. Moving on to our operating expenditures, which includes our salaries and benefits, as well as other operating expenditures. You can see about, what is that? About 1.7 million in growth year over year in the actuals, but again, our comparison to budget, very similar to last year, and for similar reasons. The growth, the 1.7 million of expenditure growth, is almost all salaries and benefits. Our employees received an 8% COLA increase in FY24, in addition to merit increases. There was an increase in the retirement contribution rate that the village is required to contribute for the employees. And we also, health insurance premiums and our workers' compensation also increased year over year. However, the workers' comp and health insurance premiums were lower than what we had budgeted for. We budgeted for about a 10% increase in the health insurance benefits, and it came in at about 4% in terms of the increased premium. So that was a big area of the savings within the budget to actual savings. In addition to lapsed salaries, primarily in the police department, as I've told you many times before.
Roughly how much of the 2.2 million that expenses were under budget was lapsed salaries?
In terms of just the salary portion, I left my papers back there. The salary portion, salaries and benefits in total was about $1 million. It was just under $1 million. I believe the salary portion was probably about $500,000 to $600,000, and then the associated
half of the positive variance was lapsed compensation. Let's call it that.
Yes, and then the associated benefits, the FICA, right, retirement contributions, et cetera. Yep. Other areas where we did have savings in operating, these are all very similar to what we experienced last year and in previous years. In contracted services, we had about $216,000 that was unspent of a total budget of $2.9 million. The most notable of that was the $75,000 we had budgeted to resurface the Village Green parking lot, which we did not do this fiscal in FY24, and there was also about $25,000 for pavement patching that was not spent. And within our internal service departments, IT, buildings and grounds, and fleet, we had some substantial savings there between salaries and benefits, maintenance costs, and fuel savings. And when we look at capital, we spent about $1.3 million less in FY24 than FY23. That's really driven primarily by doing the Cannon Park Turf project in FY23. That cost about $1.3 million. This fiscal year, we didn't have one of those really large kind of one-time projects. It was a lot more of just the routine maintenance and items that we fund year after year. And again, similar unspent balance and similar reappropriation amounts. You can see we've reappropriated almost all of the unspent dollars into FY25 to be spent. Some of the notable projects that we completed, over $1 million in fleet vehicle and equipment purchases, mostly replacements that are on a normal cycle. Our pedestrian projects, we spent $558,000 on those. Thank you to the residents who are enjoying their Mackenzie Road pathway. That was a significant portion of those dollars spent, and there's more to come. Our stormwater and intersection improvements, we spent about $322,000. Equipment for the police and fire departments. For the police, it was primarily dispatch radios, light towers. Harness track improvements were completed, as well as routine elevator and HVAC upgrades in some of the buildings. There were some capital dollars that were saved and unspent that are listed there, but out of what was budgeted, the majority of it was either spent or rolled forward to FY25. Looking ahead at our financial outlook, this is the summary, Mr. Taylor, where we're showing that compared to the FY25 SOP document, where we have the 5-year forecast that's kind of built on the assumption, an estimate or projection of what our ending FY24 fund balance will be. These are the numbers from the FY25 SOP, where we were projecting that we would add about $208,000 to fund balance, which we do calculate or project somewhat conservatively, knowing that we will have a pretty substantial roll forward for any unspent capital dollars, primarily. So we were estimating we'd have about $20.5 million in ending fund balance. We're ending at about $23.5, so about $3 million more than what we had projected in the SOP. If we take out the almost $2 million that we reappropriated from that surplus, we're at about $1 million that we're kind of really adding to the fund balance projections that were in the SOP. So definitely favorable, and this is a snapshot of what that SOP 5-year forecast would look like now with the updated fund balance numbers, accounting for the amounts that were reappropriated, assuming that those are not really in addition to fund balance. So we're still in a very good position, basically by adding that. It brings up our ending fund balance to 11.3, which is 35.3% of our budgeted expenditures. That extra $1 million definitely helps just to kind of protect against any unexpected changes that may come in investment income, sales tax income. We're pretty heavily reliant on those, at least the last several fiscal years. Those have been really favorable, but they are passive income streams that we cannot control. And so those may not continue to grow at the rates that we have seen the last couple years.
Yeah, Dana, two questions if you go back a slide.
Yep.
This does or doesn't reflect a guesstimate of what the property evaluations will have on our revenue. It does or doesn't?
It does not.
It's not, okay.
It does not.
But it does reflect the money we have been setting aside for the Given Memorial Library and the archives.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to be sure where the money was. Thank you.
So our property taxes are about half of our revenue budget. We did see an uptick in permits in FY24, which is the red line, compared to FY23, which was the blue. We had 76 new single-family residential permits submitted in FY24, but a decent amount of them are within the ETJ that would not actually be added to the tax base at the end of the day. The measure that we use does include the ETJ, but acknowledging that those, once they are built, that value does not get added to our tax base.
So let me stop you there. For the FY24, we'll say the number is 73.
I think it's 76.
76, okay.
Yeah.
What's the number less the ETJ number?
I believe it was 17 in the ETJ.
Okay.
Let me just check my note here. Yes, 17 from my count.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any idea what the ETJ was last year? Of the 42 was the total? And
I do not recall. I don't know if we had that in, if I made a note of that last year, but I can certainly find out from the planning department.
Yeah, that'd be great.
This just gives an overview, a long-term trend of the village's tax base. You can see in FY24, we all know that the revaluation by the county increased the valuation almost 50%. The projection for 25, based on the county valuations as of January 1st, 2024, which is what our FY25 tax revenue is based on, is back to our typical annual growth, about 1 to 2%, is what we're projecting for this year.
Again, in the forecast we saw a few minutes ago, you have not projected that 1% for all 5 years.
We have, yes.
Ah, okay.
The normal growth is included, the county's next revaluation, there's no assumption built in for that. I apologize if I misunderstood your question, Mr. Mayor. Cash and investments, balances keep growing from the higher revenues, particularly from the sales taxes, the additional property tax revenue collected this year, and the investment income. But the trend in terms of our cash flows has been very consistent over the last 3 years. And lastly, this is just a quick update on the library expansion capital project fund. In advance of the work session discussion tonight, it may be useful. This is a little blurry on here, but we collected about $67,000 in investment income on the funds that are in the library capital project fund. We spent about $211,000 on the design expenditures with Oakley Collier. And so we did have a decrease in the fund balance, down from 1.4 million to between 1.2, 1.3 million that we have in there. But we have in the budget for FY25, we have 2.8 million earmarked or appropriated to transfer over to the capital project fund as it's needed once construction begins and there's larger expenditures in the fund. Any other questions?
We have a general comment. It's really between us here. For the last, as long as I can remember, we have underrun our budget. I mean, I'm not sure that's something we need to celebrate every year. The reason I'm saying that, and I'll try to explain it as best I can, it seems like we spend a lot of time planning, and each department plans, how many people and the resources they need to accomplish the goal and deliver the services that we're supposed to deliver. And yet at the end of the year, we find that for some reason or another, we either don't have, we're not fully staffed through the year, or we don't spend the money. And the question is, are we the world's worst forecasters, or are we running the troops ragged, trying to make up for the difference, but, in our forecast? I don't think I'm necessarily explaining it real well, but there's something missing in my mind that if we continually underrun, and run 10% salary under, we clearly have not been able to hire, or we haven't been able to retain, or we haven't been able to get the people to do the job that we plan to get done, and the citizens deserve that. I'm not sure I'm expressing it very well, but there's something that needs to be thought out here a little bit better. I'm happy that we've got a lot of money, we can spend it on capital, but
Jack, if I
I'm concerned that we make plans and to deliver things, and we put people in place, and we ask the departments to come forward, we could forecast, and yet at the end of the day, they're not able to have the resources to do that job.
If I could take a stab at that, what we may not be properly accounting for, and it may be a non-financial cost, is the cost of training or rehiring. Some turnover is inevitable, certainly due to retirements. We can forecast that. We can presumably hire in anticipation of that or contemporaneous with retirements. We understand that hiring in the police force in particular, secondarily or slightly less, I think, Garrett, the fire department is difficult, but some of that there has to be a financial component to that. Yeah. And I wonder whether that's the piece that we're missing, because we set for full staffing, we underperform full staffing, and we have to hire. We try to hire each year to get back to full staffing, and there's a cost to that.
Well, I would be happy to celebrate 100% of our budget if we spent every single penny, both in capital and personnel. That would, to me, would be perfect. Well, or even overspend. I'm okay with that. Yeah. But to continually underspend makes me a little concerned.
Well, let me make an observation that at least in the comp and benefits area in government, in my years of experience, you always seem to have a surplus because of this lapse. There's two parts to the lapse. First of all, there's the projection of how many FTEs you're going to use during the coming year. And then there's the, whatever your turnover rate here, it's been about 14, 15% here. And so there's funds start to lapse. And because when someone leaves, you don't immediately replace them, there's this lapse money that accumulates. In the perfect world, when someone leaves on March 30th, on April 1, you have someone new start. In the government, again, that's my one experience, it doesn't work that way. In the private sector, it's much closer, okay, because people are, I don't know, I would just say that there is really more of an incentive to fill that job because it's connected to some sort of profit reward incentive in that process. So I think we are better off that we aren't spending 100% of the budget. I know you were being a little facetious there.
Well, not completely.
Yeah, but I'd like that we have some wiggle room because it also provides an opportunity, and we don't know when that is going to emerge, where we can reallocate resources that we find lapsing to do something that we otherwise would have to go back to the beginning of the process and either raise taxes or take something away from something. So that's my observation.
With the idea that we've executed all our plans and we've been able to accomplish them, I think that's great. Okay, and we're not able to do it all. Okay, we're trying to work on doing it better. I would be extremely cautious about saying the representation of using all of our budget up is a sign of success that we've accomplished everything. Just because if you do that, you also create perverse motivations in government to spend the budget. So I'd rather us be judicious on what we're doing. And if we say, okay, this isn't worth it, and our staff is saying it's not worth it, we'd rather not go with it right now than spend the budget to accomplish the goal of spending our budget. And I say that after decades of service in the government. Okay, do not create a goal of spending all your budget because it creates perverse motivations.
No, but the objective is to deliver the services.
Exactly.
And the service delivery is forecasted by each department, and they forecast how much money and personnel they need to do that service delivery.
Correct.
And so for them to underrun every year, it makes me wonder, maybe we're not forecasting enough money and enough personnel. I think it's worth the
question. My point is, let's make sure we're not putting an emphasis that if we see the budget fully spent, then that means mission accomplished.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Because it creates perverse motivations again. What we have is a staff, and we've got the staff in there that's expected to be able to use their training and be judicious and guide our village in the best way possible and to try to be as efficient as possible. So I want to make sure we give them that leeway. The budget is a dependent variable on the independent actions that occur otherwise. If you start putting goals on a dependent variable, you're going to create perverse motivations.
Okay, yeah, I understand. I'm not advocating we dump ballast, money at the end of the year just to balance.
Yeah.
The other part of that is the capital expenditures. We invariably can never seem to spend the capital money. And I think that a little bit rests on council, is that we have to make decisions faster.
Yes.
We have to be more crisp and get to these capital projects which are sitting in the wings.
Yeah, I think we've all sort of talked about making sure that becomes a focus of our retreat and how we develop the FY 26 budget. Am I right?
Yeah. Jeff, I agree with you about the perverse incentives. The one thing I don't think people have to worry about here is that if they don't fully spend, that their budget will be cut to next year, which at the federal level certainly seems to be a driving factor to, hey, we got X and we got to get it out by September 30.
You were very accurate there.
Right, there's no user, yeah.
One thing I want to mention with what Jack brought up is that, we are looking at, why is there so much lag salary specifically in the police department? So, council a few weeks ago approved a 5% raise for the police officers. So we are trying to find ways where there's not so much turnover. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the capital. That is something that we can, we should be able to spend most of that, if not all of it, each year. Part of it is like the sidewalk project that I was in charge of that didn't get spent last year, so we're working on it, but sometimes things just take longer than you'd expect.
Some of the significant projects, particularly the downtown stormwater and intersection project, the timing with the US Open, we would not have been able to complete it, so it had to be, pushed to the next fiscal year. If it had not been for the Open, it likely may have started at least.
The other side of that sort of bead balance is we had increased revenue from the ABC folks because of the Open, and now we know we're going to get probably a little jump, whatever it might be, in the sales tax in September. So it's a good situation, but I think, Jack, you're right, it's a little bit of
I'm sure it's a philosophical thing, but it's just something that struck me as I sat there in the porch looking at this thing. Wait a minute, why don't we spend this money? Yeah. So I have a very detailed question for you, if you don't mind. Relative to accumulated vacation, that is a nearing $1 million liability on our books.
Yes.
And I've been involved with this for some time with different companies that realize that the accumulated vacation liability grows substantially. The vacation that someone defers is paid out at their then current rate when they leave, is that correct?
Correct.
Not at the rate they were getting when they accumulated the vacation.
Correct.
So it grows, and so every time we increase salary by 10x%, that accumulated vacation automatically grows by that amount too.
Correct.
So this is an increasing liability. Is our policy that you can accumulate as much as you'd like, or is there a limit?
There is a limit on the accrual of vacation time. It varies by your years of service and whether you're on an 8-hour schedule, 12-hour schedule.
Let me ask a question.
Yes, there are limits, but if you have an accrual over the limit, we transfer that time that's over the limit to your sick leave.
I've seen situations where companies say, stop, you're going to take it, you're even going to have to reduce it over the next 5 years.
Let me comment. In the federal government, they have what's called use or lose, and the cap is 240 hours. And over that, you can't carry over more than 240 hours. Mm-hmm. And an employee knows that, and so sometime in usually October, they will put in a slip to take off maybe the last 3 weeks of the year, and that's fine, but if their supervisor denies them that leave, then they can carry over the beyond 240 hours. Now, what I had not seen before is where you can transfer, if I heard you correctly, your annual leave, that's an excessive amount.
Yes.
To your sick leave. Now, in the federal government, the sick leave has really no cash value.
Correct.
But your annual leave does. So if you left tomorrow, you'd cash out your annual leave. Your sick leave just goes into the cloud or whatever happens.
Yes, so the sick leave, you only get paid as you use it.
Yes.
And there is no cash value when you leave or even retire, but you can, upon retirement, convert it to service credit within the retirement system. But again, no cash value to that, but it can yield higher retirement benefit.
If I am moving annual
leave
leave because I've got too much to sick leave, it's really there in case I have a very bad illness.
Correct.
And I can use it. But it's still, I've lost the cash value.
Correct.
So it's not a big incentive to transfer that. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, most people want to use their vacation.
Yeah.
Is there no limit on sick leave beyond which you're on long-term disability or something like that?
Yeah, there's no limit to what you can accrue
No
in your,
limit to what
in
you
your leave
accrue.
balance.
Yeah, some employees, work here 30 years, that credit can get them 6 months more credit time for their retirement.
Now, is there a way for employees to transfer some of their sick leave to another employee who's had a tragic illness and is going to have a long-term process where they're going to be in the hospital for a year?
Yes.
Does
Yes,
that
we do have,
exist?
Angie, oh, did Angie leave? Okay. But yes, we do have a donated leave
Donated leave.
program where the employee that is in need
Yes.
of the donated leave can apply with Human Resources. That gets reviewed, I believe, probably with the village manager, and if they approve that, then a notice goes out to the employees that they can donate leave time. But that is only, credited to the employee that needs it.
Right.
As it's used by that employee up to the amount that people donate.
Right.
People can't just donate, a day's worth of sick leave, 8 hours of sick leave to a bank that then gets used later on as like a donated leave bank. It's
Specific employee
It's for a
request.
specific employee, and it's only, used as that employee needs the time.
Have we utilized that much here?
I don't recall it being used in the 3 years I've been here.
Yeah, I think since I've been here, which is a year and a half, I think one time, maybe early on last year, but I don't think it happens frequently.
Okay, because it is in the federal government, you see it.
And this number for accrued vacation, there's a new accounting standard that's effective in FY25, and that number will grow substantially because sick leave then is within the scope of that, so it's not just vacation time, but a portion. We have to estimate the amount of sick leave time that we anticipate employees will use that will be paid out in cash. So.
See, in my devious mind, I tied accrued vacation growing with people's inability to go on vacation because they're overworked. And we're not spending the money. So I sort of tied the two together in my mind.
Yes.
I'm sure it's not the case, but.
Yes, it's the 8, as you said, 8% or more increase in salaries in FY24. Then, especially as we compound that year over year with additional COLA increases and merit increases, this number does also include the FICA and retirement expense benefits that are associated with the actual leave time that would be paid out as well.
Is there a reason that the value of that can't be calculated based on when I contributed, what I'm being paid in the year when I put into it?
What a nightmare.
That would be a payroll nightmare when people use vacation leave.
So it's a calculation question, it's not a legal or HR?
I don't know of anyone that's ever done that.
Yeah.
But we could potentially look at it. But
in the federal government, it's the way they're doing it in here. Your value of your accrued leave, it's been that way, as far as I know, forever, or whenever they put this. I do have another question. I wanted to be sure I understood what's changing in the accrued issue of vacation and sick leave. So walk through that one more time.
Oh, okay. So you won't see it on the statements until the audit report for FY25. There's a new GASB standard for compensated absences where it broadens the scope of what types of leave. Right now, only vacation leave needs to be accrued and shown as a liability because it's the most likely to be paid out in cash. It broadens the scope of that to include sick leave and potentially other types of leave. It's very specific to your policies and the types of leave that you offer. But it requires you to estimate for all those types of leave how much you think you will pay out in cash in the future.
Well, help me understand on the sick leave, where does the payout in cash come from?
As people use it. So as of June 30th, people have a sick leave balance. What do we estimate they will use in the future before they leave, and it's all forfeited?
There's a lot of sick leave out there, isn't there?
Yes.
But I mean, it's budgeted in the budget on
Correct.
the normal salary, so
correct.
it's not really
It is a financial reporting number, not a number that impacts the budget, because within the budget, we're budgeting, for people's full salary. If there are people that if there are employees that we anticipate may retire in a given fiscal year, we do add an estimate for their vacation leave payout because some of those can be substantial. So we do add an estimate for that.
Since it's GASB, it will affect the whole public sector then, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Wow.
So imagine what the state's liability would be.
No, I know. That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I mean, we seem to have a well-run ship in the state of North Carolina. I can only imagine the amount of sick leave. Because sick leave, if you're healthy, you just keep accumulating it.
Yeah.
I have a general question about the audit process itself. Because it's the first time that I'm going through this. I've had the privilege of supervising an audit once before in Money Manager. I understand very much the questions that were asked, the line item transactions that were either taken in total or sampled. What is the process here? What sorts of transactions do they look at? And in particular, what is the possibility that there could be something going out the back door that they miss?
There's always the possibility, to your last point, there's always a possibility, and when the audit manager is here presenting the audit, that is always one of the communications that they are sure to point out, that an audit gives reasonable assurance, never absolute assurance, that the numbers are correct, that there's no fraud, those types of things. But they do not actually test internal controls, which are in place to help prevent fraud and ensure the completeness and accuracy of the statements. But they do consider them in their review of our records. In terms of what types of things they look at, they will test, cash receipts. They'll check to make sure that a cash receipt that we entered on the books as a revenue, show me it going all the way through to your bank statement, and so that I can see that you really did have a check that was deposited, for example, and they want to see something that backs up what it was for. For expenditures, they're sampling, typically, taking a whole list of all the transactions and selecting certain ones to look at. They will look at purchase orders, invoices. Are they appropriate? Were they approved? And again, following it all the way through to the payment, the check we cut, or the ACH electronic payment that went out of our bank account, did that clear? Did the vendor actually receive it, kind of indicating that, yes, those were goods or services that we truly received, because we paid a vendor and they took our money.
And with the possible exception of the SMPO, I don't think we're handling money on behalf of anybody else. Is that correct?
Correct. The only other thing that it's not really handling money on behalf of others, but we do have advanced deposits with both performance bonds, and people will put deposits down to reserve the Fair Barn and some of the other facilities that they rent. We're holding those as a security deposit, essentially, but those would be due back to them once the event is completed, and they're returned back to them.
Paperwork that goes along with that I reserved it and here's my check. And
correct. Yep, there's a contract that they sign. And the auditors also look closely at the capital asset purchases, so all our capital, the things that we add to the fixed assets, they check those to make sure that it is a capitalizable item. They check, they confirm the cash balance with the bank to make sure that we do in fact have that on hand at that bank.
And there's the same general paperwork flow, whether it is an expense below the level that the village manager can approve. I think that's $25,000 or
generally,
above it.
yep. Yeah, so they're checking for the levels of approval to make sure we're following our policies and procedures. And I think more broadly than just the specific test work, they do also do inquiries with the IT department in terms of systems. We're heavily reliant on systems to help us process transactions and create these financial reports. And they also do fraud inquiries with management.
Thanks.
I have a real quick question. It relates to the USGA incentive payment. And your memo indicates that no incentive payment was budgeted for FY 2025. I was just curious as to why.
For the incentive payment related to the economic incentive agreement, so the USGA has until December 31st of this year to notify the village of when they want to be the first year of receiving that incentive payment. Since we had not received that notification from them yet, we did not include it in the budget. Also, the full taxable value of all their property will not be is not on the tax within the tax base, is not taxable in this fiscal year. In my opinion, it may not be the most prudent to pick the first year of your tax incentive when you don't even owe the full amount that you eventually will owe. So I think just primarily not knowing yet whether they were going to elect to have it paid back to them in FY '25. We did not budget it. If they notify us that they want this fiscal year to be the first year of their incentive payment, that would be a budget amendment that will come to council.
Will that go through the county?
They will pay their taxes to the county.
Well, they don't pay the taxes. Whoever owns the property pays the taxes.
The USGA will get a separate tax bill. They have a separate parcel ID for Golf House Pinehurst.
They don't own that property.
They don't own the land, but there is a separate parcel that has the taxable value for those two buildings. So that and that is under the USGA's name, so that they can be.
They own the building, even though they don't know the land, and the land and the building.
I'm not sure what
are
their arrangement, what their lease agreement essentially is with Pinehurst, with the resort for their use of that property. That I do not know the details of that arrangement, but the USGA will be paying the tax bill. It's in their name, and so.
They don't have to drill into that right now, I don't think.
But essentially, the USGA will pay their taxes to the county, so it will come in as tax revenue for the village. And then when they have to provide us certain documentation, they have to send us proof that they paid the taxes, et cetera, that they met the other contractual commitments in the economic incentive agreement, and then we pay them 90% of their tax bill back.
Right. But back to Barb's question, they have not submitted to us that they want that payment yet, which presumably means they have also not submitted to us the fact that they believe they've satisfied the conditions that would qualify for that.
Correct.
Didn't the conditions center around number of employees?
Yes, there's a minimum number of employees that they have to employ and a minimum average salary that they need to be paid.
Yeah, I thought they exceeded that number already. But
They possibly have, but they haven't sent us a letter saying they have, so,
yeah.
which I would consider their business.
Okay. Other questions for Dana? So it's just a very friendly, unaudited discussion. Wait till we get the audited report, Dana.
Yeah, well, then all the exciting stuff you'll already know, and it'll just be the routine communications from the auditor, hopefully, and any questions you may have for them.
Well, after this conversation, that vacation day I denied you, you can go ahead and have it.
Yeah, we don't want to owe any more money, right?
Thank you very much.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Dana.
Thanks, Dana.
Okay. The next item I will raise, item 7, which is other business. Does anyone have other business to raise? Hearing or seeing none? Okay. We can. I'm going to ask the council what's their preference, whether we continue on and take up the 3 general business items and then adjourn for the closed session, or should we adjourn now and come back and take up the 3 business items?
I'd like to take a 5-minute break and
Okay.
come back in for the,
I second. Anybody else?
Good.
Okay.
I would move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Okay. And second? Second. Okay. Motion passed. And let's take a 5-minute break or so. Okay. Thank you. I didn't read what you gave me. It was a little bit rushed at the end. I think it's fine. No, I'll read it good. Oh, yeah.